Hey, who we got? Adrian, John Owensby, Frank. Good to see you got your power back on.
Yeah. It's been a long time since we talked.
Yeah, absolutely. Caroline, Grant out in Spain. Who else we got? We got David Reed again. We got Donna. Hi, Donna. Liz Oliver. We've got Charles Barnasconi. Yes. Linda Weatherby actually on the sofa. Yay! Welcome back to the sofa. Who else? We've got Roger, we've got Isabella, we've got Phil Atkinson up in the Outer Hebrides. We've got Lee, we got Sylvia, we got Lana, we've got Pam, we've got Alex. How you doing, Alex? We've got George. Right. Okay. Well, we've got a number of other people coming in too. Sorry for the late starting of this. We had a few technical problems our end as well, which is just one of those things. So, firstly, Happy New Year. The first Personal Magnetism Masterclass of 2025. I always say this, I always frame this up, this will be a short one, but then, then we wind up doing like an hour or 2 hours or whatever. So, quick refresh, because obviously the last one we did was before Christmas, which was about, how do we generate, how do we absorb nerve force? And what we were talking about was the key thing with the breath, and how, Huna gives us the ha breath. Because there was that whole thing that Theron Q Dumont talks about with the breath being linked with our emotional state, which is also what we have in NLP, in that, the thing, how we change our state in NLP quickest is with our physiology. And the key thing in our physiology is our breathing. And Theron Q Dumont talks about the anger breath, the fear breath, but then also the calm, balanced, relaxed breath, which we talked about being related to the elements here, which is we want to extend the out breath. So no hold in, no hold out. Obviously, physically, it's going to take you time to breathe in, but the in-breath is as quick as possible from the diaphragm, and then it's extending the out-breath as long as possible, which in Huna is the ha breath. So it's literally and it's interesting. I was just reading the chapter again yesterday in the book Personal Magnetism, and when we first started out, or when I first started out doing Huna, the ha breath was like, everybody's like, and Uncle always used to say, why do people have to force the out breath? It's just a relaxed out breath. So it's like a and I think in the last session we talked about the importance of the vibration of the ha in the throat, because it stimulates the vagal nerve. That's how we generate, or how we absorb what Theron Q Dumont calls nerve force energy, what we would call in Huna, mana, what other systems would call chi, ki, prana, whatever. Now, this session is around how do we then go about distributing this nerve force in through the body that we've generated. And a couple of things here. It always says, like, look at what you do naturally. Well, I've got a number of cats here. In fact, I can see one of them just sitting over here, listening to what we do. And what they do, they have a cat nap, because we've got underfloor heating here, and they just love the underfloor heating. So they're flopped out all the time on the floor, and then they wake up. And what do? Firstly, they yawn, and then they stretch. My cats, probably like most cats, don't go down to the gym. But what they do is, they get up, and then they'll yawn, and then they stretch. And this is what Theron Q Dumont's talking about here with what he calls calisthenics, or tension. So, if I do this, I'm contracting the muscles in my back and the back of my thighs, and I'm extending these muscles here. So the cats do this. And then they'll do the other way around. So now they're contracting all these muscles down the front and extending the muscles down the back. Yeah. And that's what animals do. I mean, I haven't got dogs, I've got cats. I see them doing this all the time after they've had a bit of a sleep, a bit of a relax. And they do this multiple times a day. Stretching, which is tensing certain muscles, and the opposing muscles are being stretched compared to the ones that are being contracted. Now, the interesting thing here from what Theron Q Dumont talks about, you got to be aware that this is early 1900s. These are in the days before what we would now call bodybuilding. And it was the day, and bodybuilding as we call it today was called physical culture. Working out with weights. It's called physical culture. And what he talks about in this chapter, which I think is really important, is that, literally, if you're into physical culture, if you're into bodybuilding, if you're into working out today, then what you do is you go to the gym, you work out with weights, whatever it may be, and you exhaust yourself. Once you've exhausted yourself, then you go, and what Theron Q Dumont is talking about here is reversing that process. So deep rhythmical breathing before you do your exercise, calisthenics, or whatever he's talking about. Now, interestingly, the other thing that came into my mind when I was reading the chapter is that there was today we call him a bodybuilder, but it wasn't really what you call a bodybuilder in those days. It's in the 1950s. Charles Atlas. who did this thing. And Linda, I can see you're nodding there, you know about Charles Atlas. He had this whole thing which he called dynamic tension. So this is all and calisthenics in general is about working out your body without any equipment. So as an example, because I've got Charles Atlas's, he had this direct mail thing that you'd buy, and how you became big on the beach rather than the 6-stone weakling that got sand kicked in his face like I was when I was a kid. And what you did, you didn't need any equipment, you didn't need anything. All you got is like a chair or whatever, and you did dynamic tension, which is why, like, this is one of the exercises that you do, like this, where you put your hands together and you pull. And now what I'm doing is I'm tensing all the muscles across my back. Or another one you do would be like this. Whereas, I'm contracting my bicep muscle, I'm holding it down with my other hand, which means I'm extending my tricep muscle. Yep. This was a whole thing that led to, and it's upstairs, I've got it with me in the studio, that led to the development of a bull worker. For those of you who remember bull workers, and again, this would be showing your age. But what these exercises do, and we can look at it from a, excuse me, we can look at it from a neurological point of view. Because when I do this, and I'm contracting my bicep, but opposing it with my tricep, then I'm using nerve force. Because it's nerve force that contracts the muscle or extends the muscle. And the more we do that, what actually happens on a physiological basis is we increase if we think of, let me just see if I can see it. If we think of our nerves as being like a wire, then what we're doing is we're increasing the size of that wire. We're increasing the amount of voltage, current, energy that our nerves can transfer. And this is what cats do. They don't know about working out. It's what dogs do. When they've got up, they stretch. And when they do that, and what Theron Q Dumont's talking about is doing the same thing. Now, I think the big thing that Theron Q Dumont's talking about here is the fact that we want to do the building of the nerve force through deep rhythmical breathing, hard breathing, before we do our tension exercises. Whereas what he says is that most people, what they do is they go and do their tension exercises, then they're depleted of nerve force, and then afterwards they go, and they regenerate it. Whereas what Theron Q Dumont's talking about is we do that first, then we do our exercises. So let's talk about that in a practical point of view. If you enjoy walking, running, whatever, which is not a tension exercise, it's a cardiovascular exercise, then a lot of people, because they don't hard breathe beforehand, then they are in most people are in what's be called a oxygen depleted state. Their O2 saturation is not at 99, 100%. Whereas if you hard breathe before you go out and do cardiovascular, then you're fully oxygenated. Then, you know, what I personally do is when I hard breathe beforehand, and then I hard breathe whilst I'm walking, whilst I'm running. If you're going to do tension exercises, which most people would be resistance exercises, whether that's body weight resistance, like a TRX, or with weights, then you do hard breathing before then. And I would recommend actually doing hard breathing whilst you're working out. So, you know, classic TRX, you've got your TRX body weight, you've got the straps that you're doing, and then we hard breathe, we go, and then we go on the out. Or if you're doing things for your biceps, your lats, we've got which, whilst you're working out, is circulating this nerve force around your entire body. And though we start out with deep rhythmical breathing, or what we from Huna we would call hard breathing, before we start to work out, rather than what most people do, is that they're panting for breath after they've worked out, rather than oxygenate themselves before they work out. And that's pretty much what he's talking about here. Then he starts to talk about what we would call the chakras. And he's talking about the solar plexus, which is here, third chakra, which is interesting because the third chakra is quite unique. It's not in the same place for everybody. It will be somewhere between the bottom of your sternum, which is the bone in the middle of your ribs, and your navel or your belly button. It'll be somewhere between there. And talks about hard breathing, not his terms, whilst focusing on that area of the body. And then he talks about what he calls the sacral center, which is the second chakra, which is in alignment with the sexual organs. That's where it's located, number 2. And doing deep rhythmical breathing whilst, if we think about the law of energy flows where your attention goes. So if you want to increase the energy in your solar plexus, you put your attention here. If you want to increase the energy in your sacral, or what some people call the sexual chakra, then we put our attention down here whilst we're doing our deep rhythmical breathing, what we would call hard breathing, and that would actually bring the energy into there. That's essentially what Theron Q Dumont in that chapter is talking about, distribution of nerve force energy. So, you know, obviously we haven't seen each other since before Christmas. Hope you had a great Christmas. And a great new year. So if you've got any questions about what we've covered before on personal magnetism, then put it in the chat. If you've got questions about what I've talked about tonight, put it in the chat. As usual, Sally will manage that. And if there are any questions, then she'll ask you to unmute your microphone so you can ask the question personally And then I'll do my best to to answer it. So if you've got questions, put them in the chat right now. And then, Sally, do we have any questions?
Not at the moment. It's all making sense clearly. Everybody's stretching.
Everybody's stretching. Everybody stretch with me. Feels good, doesn't it?
I think this one could be the shortest one we've done.
It could be.
Yeah. So no questions on
Distribution of nerve force. It's a pretty simple one.
yeah.
And, you know, as I said, I was reading the chapter. I always read the chapter in the book several times before we do the session. And the first thing that popped into my mind was our cats here doing their stretch, and they arch their back and whatever, and they do their, and then they're off. And I went, okay, that's what Theron Q Dumont's talking about.
So we do have a couple of David Reed.
Okay.
I'm not sure, David, if you've got a question or it's kind of a statement. You have a question mark, so if you can unmute, that would be great.
David, hello.
Hi, David. How you doing?
I'm very good. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you. Happy New Year.
And to you, I hope you had a good birthday.
I did. I had a fantastic birthday. You know, a bit of personal information, but I had for Christmas. It was the first time I'd had a family Christmas, as in my family that are up here, for about 30 years. So yeah, it was really good, really special.
Good. So what I'm taking from that is, and I'm oversimplifying, but breathe and exercise.
Breathe is how you generate or absorb what Theron Q Dumont calls nerve force energy.
Yep.
Then how you distribute that through what we would call your nervous system is through tension exercises. Tension being contracting one set of muscle. Look, he talks about calisthenics, which is, you know, body weight exercises without, you know, weights or any machines or anything like that, would be putting tension on one particular muscle whilst stretching another one. And if you think about the whole body, you've got muscles on the front of the body as an example. This is a gross simplification. You've got muscles on the front of the body, muscles on the back of the body. So if you contract the muscles on the back of your body, like if I pull my shoulder blades together, I'm contracting the muscles on the back of my body while stretching the muscles on the front of my body.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing is the order and sequence. Breathe to build the nerve force, then do the exercise to distribute it around the body.
And all the way back in 2024, you were saying, this sort of introduction to this, I think, that weight-bearing exercise was a powerful tool for building personal magnetism. So is this breathe and then do tension and or weightlifting? Weight bearing?
Yes.
Okay.
So, order and sequence, hard breathing first, build nerve force. I personally would hard breathe whilst I was doing tension building exercise. And he's talking about in the chapter, bearing in mind 1930, whatever it is, weight bearing exercises like press ups, like non-weighted squats, like chin ups,
Yep.
etc. What we've now got is we can do those exercises with extra resistance, extra tension, with weights. And, what I talked about in 2024 was that one of the best things you can do for your personal magnetism is heavy weightlifting. Because just from a biomechanical point of view, if I'm doing a bicep curl and I'm doing it with dumbbells, then it's nerve force, in Theron Q Dumont's words, that enable me to contract my bicep and lift the weight. So therefore, the more weight I can lift with my bicep, the greater the it would be the current rather than the voltage that I can actually use to contract my bicep. And that's our hardware for then what we talk about in later chapters, containing, and then what we talk about here, distributing, but then we're going to talk about transmitting nerve force.
Thank you.
Cheers, David.
Okay, well, we're on the subject of weight. Roger, would you like to ask your question?
Hi, David. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, can I hear fine? Thanks, Roger.
Jolly good. Happy New Year to everyone. Yes, I have a very sad statistic. I've been doing weight training for now over 50 years. And I get out in the gym, which is the garage, try and do it every day.
You started later than me then.
Oh, did I? Yeah. Yeah. So it has been a really good investment. So I certainly sign up to all that. Now, it's a bit techie, this, but do you know, I realize that after all that time, I've never really understood whether you're supposed to breathe in on, let's say you're doing curls or bench press, when you're actually doing the straining bit, i.e., lifting the weights or pushing the weights up with a bench press, whether you breathe in on that or you breathe out on that and then breathe in on the release.
Okay.
I'm not sure I even think about it, but now you've talked about this, I better start thinking about it. What's the right way of doing it?
So if you're thinking about bench press, right? So here we are, we've got the free weights, bar, whatever, and you've got to think that what your intention when you bring the weights down is that we are stretching our pectoral muscles. So what you do is on the way down, you'd breathe in.
Right.
That's going to stretch these even more because your chest is going to be inflated. Then, and this is where Theron Q Dumont doesn't really talk about this, but then now what we're going to do when we push the weight back up, which really gives us what in weight training, in bodybuilding, would be described as super slows. So we are significantly stronger in the negative than the positive. So what we wanted to do is to maintain the tension on the muscles as much as we can. And that would be the correct way of breathing whilst doing. So you know, if we were to look at bicep curl, then super slow on the release, which keeps the tension on the muscle for as long as possible.
Right,
That's
yeah.
how it becomes most effective, but also how we create the most. It's not really creating nerve force, but it's creating the ability to transmit, if you like, the nerve force.
That's great, thanks. On that basis, I got it half right. Thanks a lot.
There's only two halves to it, Roger. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers, mate.
Okay, and we have a question from Liz Oliver.
Okay, Liz.
Yes, thank you. This isn't about tonight. I can't remember when it came into my mind, but anyway,
Doesn't matter.
it's to do with just your decision-making sort of meta programs and the impact that has on your energy or magnetism. Let me give a bit of context. So I was specifically thinking about like whether you're judger or perceiver. And if you're more a judger and you make decisions and you have closure, in my mind, I thought, well, that's probably sort of stronger from your energy point of view. Whereas if you're a bit more perceiver and everything's all left open-ended and you're not certain about anything, does that have an impact on your energy? I guess that was kind of what I was wondering and thinking.
Okay, no, that's a really good question, Liz. I guess the thing with, well, you know, judger, perceiver, it's not black and white, it's a sliding scale.
Yeah.
Are there extremes of both judger and perceiver? Yes, there are. Judger, basically, somebody who's more judger wants the decision made, and then they want things to be adhered to that decision, that plan of action. If it doesn't go to that plan of action, then they're going to experience some kind of cognitive stress, which, if you like, will burn nerve force energy. Somebody who's more perceiver, they want to keep their options open. So they'll leave making a decision till the last minute, when they are literally forced to make a decision. That's when they feel the stress, because it limits, in their perception, it limits their options. So, you know, if we understand the relationship between adaptation response, which is judge and perceiver from a meta program's point of view, and timeline orientation, through time and in time, then, you know, there are pros and cons to both. So, as an example, somebody who's more judger when they go on holiday, like Christmas and New Year, like we just experienced, they can find that time of year stressful because what's playing on their mind is all the things that they didn't close, they didn't complete before Christmas. And, if they're going like, well, nobody's around, therefore, all of these things are going to stay open until New Year. That they will find, somebody who's more judging will find stressful. Somebody who's more perceiver will go, right, Christmas Eve, I'm off now. I'm not going to do anything until the new year. And they're really comfortable with that. So, somebody who's more perceiver at holiday times find it very, very easy to switch off, whereas a judger won't. Yeah. So you've got pros and cons with both. If we understand the relationship between our timeline orientation, then we can change our timeline orientation and literally have the best of both worlds. So, if you think about the classic 9 to 5, 5 days a week work week, then your best thing there, what would be most functional, would be to be through time, be more judger. Classic weekend, Saturday, Sunday, holiday period, most functional is in time perceiver. And then, we, as I say, we've got the best of both worlds. Which is really, the whole thing for me about NLP as an example is flexibility and functionality.
Yeah, that's helpful because it's not just as simple as black and white as I think I was making out in my mind. So that's helpful.
No, so there's pros and cons to both. With our knowledge and wisdom that we've got, thanks to things like NLP, timeline therapy, then we can be flexible and achieve or actually experience what's most functional. Yeah.
I think I want what Grant's got, so he's just put in the chat that he changes his timeline every weekend. So show me how, Grant. Thank you. Thanks.
Probably since he moved to Spain. Sally, any other?
Alex has got a question for you.
Alex, you're up.
I'm afraid I've got one of those questions, David. It is, I think, is the hard breath different in the masculine as opposed to the feminine and something else, which I can't remember?
Alex, you put, and does this affect the nerve tension?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So the hard breath, which is the extension of the out breath in relationship to the other three sides of the square, will actually have the same effect for both male physiology and female physiology. As in, it increases the water element in the body. Generally, male and female, what Theron Q Dumont refers to as being the sacral chakra would be related to the water element. Think about it where it's located, it's the waterworks, if you like, yeah. Whereas what he refers to as the solar plexus is here, third chakra. If you looked at it from a physiological point of view, rules digestion. Digestion, literally, when we eat food, what we do physiologically is we burn it. So that's related to the fire element. Then there is, Alex, I don't know if this is like what you're alluding to, or whether it's what your unconscious mind was bringing up as a question. So generalizations, the chakras are those. We've got earth element, root chakra; water element, second chakra; fire element, third chakra; air element, heart chakra; throat is spirit element, ether, akasha; eo, kiave. Now, if we wanted to chunk down on that, and obviously these are still generalizations, the difference between male and female from an elements point of view is not the energy in the chakra, but the energy in the sexual organ. So, for male, and I'm not just talking about from a physiological point of view, somebody who is more male polarity, then yes, the second chakra is the water element, but the male sexual organ, the phallus, if you like, is fire element. For the woman, water in the second chakra and water in the female sexual organ. That's the polarity that creates sexual attraction. I say that, from a generalization point of view, because, I've got friends who are in male-male relationship. I've got friends who are in female-female relationship. But what you'll find is there is always a polarity. There will always be one that's more fire in the second chakra and one that's more water in the second chakra, which is what causes them to be attracted to each other, even though anatomically they are physically the same, if that makes sense. But for people to be attracted, there has to be that polarity. And the polarity is between the elements of fire, electric, and water, magnetic, causes the attraction. Alex, I don't know if that answers your question.
It's very beautiful, but I was asking whether the hard breath is different in the male or the female. The female expression of the hard breath from the feminine, and the hard breath in the masculine. Is that different? Because when I do the hard breath, if I do it, I've never done it, so I don't know what it is really. I can kind of do it, but I wondered if it has any relevance in terms of the masculine and the feminine.
No.
No.
It's the same for both.
Yeah.
What the hard breath does is increase the water element.
Yeah.
the water element being related to, astrologically, the moon, and being related to magnetism, which is how it ties into personal magnetism. Because if you think about it from a not an astrological point of view, but from a solar system point of view, long been related that the tides are driven by the moon. But then from a scientific point of view, the moon actually doesn't have the mass to be able to draw the water from one side of the planet to another side of the planet. It's the magnetism of the moon that actually moves the oceans and the seas, rather than pure gravitational force.
Mm.
But the Ha breath is, what do we call it? Unisexual, bisexual,
Yeah.
whatever. Has the same effect for both sexes.
Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure, Alex. Thanks for your question.
Okay, Charles, you've got a question.
Hi, David. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, Happy New Year and happy birthday as well.
Thank you.
Quick question, really. We're thinking about a sequence of events. You mentioned about doing the Ha breathing, and I know in the session we talked about last time how long. You said 7 minutes. So I'm working on the basis that we're carrying that forward. If we're doing the Ha breathing for, let's say, 7 minutes, then we do the exercise with the weights, or exercise against your own body resistance.
Yep.
What breathing do we need to do after the exercise? Because if I'm working on the basis that I'm doing 7 minutes of breathing before the exercise, and then doing it during the exercise as well, do I do hard breathing to kind of close the thing off? What are your thoughts about that?
Good question. And Theron Q Dumont kind of like alludes to this, as in, he talks about the dynamic people with natural charisma and natural personal magnetism do deep rhythmical breathing all the time. So then, once you start breathing that way all the time, which is actually, I believe, how we're meant to breathe, then you don't need to do 7 minutes in the morning, 7 minutes in the evening, because in actual fact, you are ha breathing all the time. You might not be doing the physical ha, and it's the way that you breathe naturally. And that's what will happen. It's how babies, newborn babies, breathe anyway. They're lying in their cot, and what you see is their tummy going in and out, because they're breathing from the diaphragm. Whereas, what Theron Q Dumont talks about, anger breath, fear breath, whatever, they don't have that. They just do deep rhythmical breathing all of the time. So that would be the ultimate goal, I think.
Okay, thank you. Good. And would you just remind me what the difference is between anger breath and fear breath? And
Yeah, from what Theron Q Dumont talks about, if you're feeling angry, for most people, it will tend to be short, quick breaths, which are high in the chest. Similar for fear. And he says, think of a time when you felt angry, how are you breathing? Breathe that way. And even if you've got nothing to feel angry about, you'll start to feel angry. The natural rhythm that a person has when they're feeling scared, which again would tend to be higher in the chest, shorter and quicker. When you adopt your natural breathing rhythm for fear, even though you've got nothing to be scared about, you'll start to feel afraid. Which is how he relates the breath with your emotional state.
Great, thank you.
Cheers, Charles.
Okay, and Adrian has something to share on his discovery tonight.
Okay, cool. Adrian, how you doing? Out in Romania.
Hi, David. Happy New Year. Happy birthday.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
I had a realization throughout our session. Up to 2023, I was living in a different place, and it took me about 45 minutes to get to where I was swimming. And I was doing heart breathing all the way to the swimming pool.
Wow.
And the swimming worked brilliantly in terms of fitness. It's my favorite form of exercise.
Good.
So
Yeah.
I found it very easy to keep in my desired physical form. Now, in 2023, I moved home to a place which is much closer to the swimming pool. It's only a few minutes away. So I wouldn't be doing the heart breathing before the swimming.
Right.
And I didn't realize it then, but I found, one, the swimming more difficult, and two, it didn't work in terms of fitness anymore. So I would be swimming day in, day out, but I wouldn't be seeing the same kind of results. And I got very discouraged. I was like, what is it? Did my body hit a threshold in terms of age? But now, thanks to today's session, I realized what the difference is. I wasn't doing the heart breathing before the session anymore.
Yep.
So that's just what I wanted to share. Maybe somebody finds it useful as well.
Great. Good learning. Great distinction. Yeah. I mean, I found the same thing. Not so much with swimming, but certainly since I was young, I really loved running, jogging, whatever it may be. And, doing hard breathing before I started running and jogging, and then hard breathing whilst I was running and jogging, made a massive difference. Was I fitter? No. Was I stronger? No. From a biological point of view, was I properly oxygenated? Yes. From what Theron Q Dumont's talking about, did I go into that activity having generated nerve force before I did that activity, and also continued generating nerve force energy whilst I was doing the activity? Yes. So yeah, fantastic. Good learning, good distinction.
Yes, no, that's it. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Good to see you.
Okay,
Likewise.
are there any further questions or sharing points, I'm going to call them?
Sharing points.
Yeah. Do we have any sharing points tonight? Or further questions? I'll take that as a no then. I think we're good to go, Dave.
Great stuff. So we're going to be back again. What day is it today? It's Tuesday today, isn't it? I lose track of days because I the whole, like we were talking about before, the whole classical 9 to 5 Monday to Friday doesn't exist for me. I had my friend and co-host for the results show came up first thing yesterday. We were filming through the entire day into not just the evening, the night, and then we started again this morning. So I get a little bit of like time distortion. We'll be back again on Tuesday, a week today, for another episode of the Personal Magnetism Masterclass. I will be editing this, probably not tonight, but first thing tomorrow morning, and then I'll upload it, and we'll get that out to you guys that are here. Thank you for being here physically. I really appreciate that. And also out for replays and all that kind of stuff. Okay? So, thanks guys. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week. As they say, same time, same bat channel.